You want to run a D&D one-shot adventure, but you're not sure how to make it awesome? Don't worry, we got you covered. Welcome to Demystifying D&D. I'm today's host, Justin Powell, and today we're going to cover how to run a successful one-shot. If you like this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new content. Now, let's get started. A one-shot, simply put, is a mini adventure that can be wrapped up in a single session, hopefully. It's usually a self-contained story with NPCs or events that won't continue past the end of the session. One-shots are great opportunities to introduce new players to D&D, to break up the monotony of a long-term campaign, or to allow your forever DM the chance to finally play D&D. DMs, I feel your pain. And to clarify, this video is about running one-shots, not writing them. If you are interested in tips on writing a one-shot, let us know in the comments and we'll get cracking on that video ASAP. The first tip is to talk to your players. It's always important to check in with your players so that you can understand the type of experience they're hoping to have. Ask them what their favorite aspects are about D&D. Maybe they are really into the role-playing side of it, but not so heavy on the puzzles and riddles. Perhaps they really want a good mystery, but can't stand having to roll initiative and jump into combat. Use those answers as guideposts for what to focus on when you're running your one-shot adventure. Now with new players, it gets a little bit tricky because they've never played D&D. So you can ask them questions like, what's your favorite movie? What are some story themes that you're drawn to? Or maybe even, what's your favorite video game? Use those answers to try to help you decide which areas to focus on when running your one-shot adventure. With new players, I always suggest throwing in a little bit of every aspect of D&D. That way they get to fully experience what this game is all about. The second tip for running a one-shot adventure is to plan out your timeline. Each one-shot should probably take around 3 to 4 hours depending on what you and your players agree to. So plan accordingly. Try to determine or guess how long each scene or moment or conversation or combat might take in your one-shot, and give yourself a little schedule so that you can always stay on track. For example, if the first part of the one-shot is breaking out of a prison, how long do you expect that to take? Plan that out, and that way, if the party takes too long or moves too quickly, you'll be able to understand how to pace through the rest of the session accordingly. Tip number 3 focuses on the storytelling aspects. Always remember to understand clearly the beginning, middle, and end of your one-shot adventure. Start your one-shot with clarity. Don't wait for your players to bite on a narrative hook. Instead, clearly define the hook, either before the session or at the very beginning of it. Your goal is to get to the action, the meat of the session, as soon as possible. So if your players are starting off in a town square, don't give them time to shop around and chat with a merchant and maybe go grab a pint. Instead, start the action off quickly. Maybe a merchant comes up to the group with a couple of guards and accuses one of the players of thievery. Or an assassin's blade narrowly misses the back of a character's head just as you ask them to roll initiative. Whatever the hook is, be sure to get into it quickly so that your players are thrust into the action. The middle part of a one-shot adventure is the meat of the session. However, one thing to watch out for here is the feeling of railroading that can occur during a one-shot adventure in particular. Now, what is railroading? Railroading is simply when the DM has a very set story in mind, and no matter what the players do, that story is going to happen. We've all had experiences like this. Maybe you rolled a natural 20 to persuade the guard to let you and your friends go, but the DM decided, no, it doesn't work. He shakes his head and says, you're a nice fellow, but I'm still gonna take you to jail. That's kind of a bit of railroading. But it's a bit tougher in one-shot adventures because, like I said, it's supposed to be completed in one night. So you do have a story that you gotta get through in 3 to 4 hours. So some railroading may come up. The question is, how do we avoid the feeling of a railroaded session? First, whenever a decision needs to be made in the game, try to outline 2 possible paths that the players might take. For example, if a noble hires them to spy on a councilman, maybe they do decide to go spy on that person, or maybe they go inform the councilman that they were paid to spy on him. Another good idea, and this is one that you can use in your long-term campaigns too, is to keep a handful of pre-planned NPCs in your back pocket. These can be used to help move the plot along, to provide essential information to the characters, or even to balance a party weakness. For example, if you have no healers in the party, well, maybe a local cleric comes by to help out with the situation. The ending is where you can wrap everything up. Any side plots that the characters got involved in can be weaved together into the finish here, and the big bad evil guy can be defeated. The fourth tip is to be intentional with your narration. Now, in a long-term campaign, you might take a lot of time to describe each area your players go into in great detail. But in a one-shot, you want to try to keep the narrative focused. If your players walk into a tavern, you can paint the scene, but spend a little bit of extra time focusing on the cloaked individual in the corner who has vital information for tonight's one-shot. This will hopefully keep the one-shot on track so that your players don't spend the entire session talking to Tara the Arakakra, the NPC you came up with on the fly. That's a pun. The fifth tip is be prepared to wing it. You can have the tightest story ever with very clear clues and meticulously planted evidence that should guide the players right down the path you're hoping they'll take. But they can still throw a curveball at you that will affect the most experienced of DMs. For example, I once had a one-shot where the players were investigating some mystery surrounding a town. They went into the doctor's office to look for clues, and one of the players bit the doctor. Just bit him. So I could have either held tightly onto my story and forced them down the path I had planned, or I could improvise. And that's what I did. So instead, the player that had bitten the doctor and his friend that had helped him fight the doctor were thrown into jail. The other 3 players were asked to leave the town. Then, the mystery one-shot that I had planned turned into a rescue mission. So don't be afraid to deviate. After all, one of the best aspects of D&D is that your players have such a huge impact on the story you're telling. Deviating from your plan is welcome. Last but not least, just have fun. I know it seems corny, but D&D is a game. The most important thing is having fun with the people that you play with. So those are just a few tips to make sure your one-shots run a bit smoother. Now, by no means is this a comprehensive list. If you'd like some more tips, be sure to check out the articles linked below. They were tremendous in helping me organize my own thoughts around running one-shot adventures. If you don't want to write your own one-shot, that's totally fine. Head over to dmsguild.com. They have a treasure trove of amazing one-shots written by very talented writers that can help you out today. Let us know in the comments any tips that you'd recommend for running one-shots as well. Thanks for tuning in. If this video helped you at all, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any great content coming soon. And remember, no guts, no story.
Check out our other shows like Monsters Lab, 1 Hour One Shot, and our live stream campaigns. We're live every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific on twitch.tv/characterplayer.